We managed to build over 1,600 homes, half of which are affordable. And I think it's about being flexible and be able to negotiate and understand when things change, you have to renegotiate as well. And I think that's key to these ongoing projects, especially when these projects are like 20, 30 years long. And I think having that good kind of open and honest relationship with them, and sometimes being quite tough as well. And I think that's key.
Hello, I'm Toby Fox from 1.5 Million New Homes, the Local Government Challenge, sponsored by Redloft and by Lovell Partnerships. And I'm visiting a different council every month to find out what works and what needs to change to get more homes built. And this month I've come to the Royal Borough of Greenwich. And I'm going to visit Cllr Majid Rahman, who is Cabinet Member for Planning, Estate Renewal and Development. And I'm going to find out all the different ways in which the council is trying to get those homes built.
Hi, my name is Majid Rahman. I'm councillor in East Greenwich, and I'm also Cabinet Member for Planning, Estates, Renewal and Development. And we're here at the Morris Walk Estate, which is part of the former Woolwich Estates, which parts of it rolled over to Charlton as well, so I think it's important to mention. And the reason I'm here, this is a very good example of a council's partnership with a developer like Lovell and PA Housing, a social housing organisation, to deliver housing units for our residents in the borough. And it's also a very good example of estate regeneration. So I grew up in this area, so I know this area quite well. My mum still lives just around the corner, actually. I was almost going to go there. But I think what I've seen here is how it's been transformed from an estate that was enclosed, not very safe and not very well considered, obviously past its time, to an estate where we managed to build over 1,600 homes, half of which are affordable. Which is a great example of how, when you have the right intentions and the right partnerships, you can really build for our community. And I think what's important to kind of highlight here is how this council is being very agile, actually, and is pivoting at times where others are struggling to develop and build. So across London, over the last 3 years, we've been one of the main borough to really keep things new builds coming along and actually developing. And in terms of looking at partnerships, well, we're looking at building ourselves. So Greenwich Builds is one of our kind of jewel in our crown for housing development. The plan is to build around over 1,700 homes through that, and we've already delivered almost half of that. And we also where I mentioned about pivoting, we've pivoted to buying as well. So in the current climate, what's happening is registered providers or social housing organisations, they're not buying because of some of the legislations due to changes from the last government in housing safety regulations. They've had to build second stair cores in their developments, which meant that their cost has gone up on pre-existing projects. So they haven't been able to buy. So this is an opportunity for the council to go and buy from developers at cost, which actually is cheaper currently than building ourselves.
Where are you getting the money to do that, Council?
So some of those monies are HRA funds. We're looking to GLA for that kind of funding, but we've also got capital receipts where we've brought in funding through Section 106 still for infrastructure projects. So obviously these are temporary measures, but we do need the government to recognise actually this is something that councils could be doing in the meantime, whilst the registered providers find their feet again. And I think
what does the government need to do to help you do that?
And I think in terms of unlocking those kind of opportunities, I think the government does really need to work with a local organisation to understand what their opportunities are, what kind of fundings can help unlock those opportunities, working with obviously local authorities, but working with developers and other housing associations to understand what the current climate is. And I understand the Mayor of London has proposed an emergency plan around relief for developers, and I think this is going to be a very crucial point to see how to stimulate the market again, because I understand a lot of the developers aren't coming forward or they're slowing down in planning because of some of the measures in place. So for example, there's a proposal of 20% affordable housing in the place of 35, which in the short term, I understand we need to stimulate the market because we're not getting planning coming forward at the 35% mark. And actually, if we can encourage developers to come in and speed up the process, we can get more houses built in the interim. But this is a challenge for us to work with the government on and take part in that consultation once it launches. And the other thing I want to mention about Greenwich Build is I think it's really important. another thing that we're really proud of is actually we've developed one of the largest social housing projects. I believe it's Europe, but I know it's in the UK. I'd have to fact check the numbers for Europe, but we've got almost just over 450 homes, all 100% social housing, and it's built and it's developed in-house by Greenwich Bills, and this is one of the ways that we've been able to kind of fill that gap.
This is the
Kidbrooke Park Estates. That's correct. Yes, which has won numerous awards.
So how did you get that scheme delivered?
Yeah, so Kidbrooke Park Village project is a partnership between Berkeley Homes, ourselves, and L&Q Social Housing, and it's a scheme that's part of a huge estate regeneration of what was formerly the Ferrier Estates in Kidbrooke, which at the time I believe had about 1,900 homes, but we managed to. By the end of the project, we'll have about just under 5,000, so 4,700 homes built on that site. But I think just looking at the homes alone isn't enough. I think looking at the whole placemaking of what this project has provided, so green spaces, biodiversity, making the area safer, reinvigorating the railway station. So, and I think it was an area that growing up, it wasn't somewhere that you wanted to, be after a certain time. But now when you go there, it's flourishing, new homes, young families, kids are running around. And I think it's just a really good example of how a partnership between private and public can really work and benefit the community.
So I feel like I'm crying tears of joy at the scene that you're painting, but it's just because the hurricane is blowing through at the moment. So thank you for putting up with it. Do you want to talk about that partnership that you have at Kidbrooke? That's something that you've exercised in other places as well, and indeed here.
Yeah.
What is it about the council that works so well in partnerships, do you think? Because it is unusual.
Yeah. I think the reason partnerships can work is as a council, you are a landowner generally, and I think you can unlock certain opportunities, and where working with developers, you can kind of share the risk, and I think that's important. And obviously you're working with developers to apply for funding on certain social housing schemes within that project, but also working with developers to identify the best designers, and kind of because of their experience and to be able to take on certain risks, and the council to be able to provide the land to build on. I think it creates a quite. It's not risk-free, obviously, and in some ways, it's a perfect opportunity in the current times to be able to kind of build those relationships. And I think what's important is not just coming together with the developer on a one-off stage, but it's building that relationship over time. And with these developers that we're working, for example, Berkeley Homes, and there are others in the borough as well, these are relationships that where they come in, they're not just a developer, they're actually a local stakeholder. And I think that's key to making them work as well.
Yeah, but sometimes you have to make difficult decisions, don't you, in those partnerships? Sometimes you have to make a compromise. What sort of compromises have you had to make in order to get houses delivered?
Yeah, I think, it depends on you have to think about the nature of the partnership. So where, for example, you'd be a landowner, there'd be a developer, and they'd lease that land for a certain amount of time, and they'd sell it back to you or after a certain period of time. And I think it's about being flexible and be able to negotiate and understand when things change, you have to renegotiate as well. And I think that's key to these ongoing projects, especially when these projects are like 20, 30 years long. And I think having that good kind of open and honest relationship with them, and sometimes being quite tough as well. And I think that's key.
Okay, so tough love is your message.
Yeah. Well, everyone gets along, but it's not without, some hard truths.
Cllr Majid, thank you very much indeed for playing your part in getting those 1.5 million new homes built.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
So that's it for another episode of 1.5 million new homes, the local government challenge, sponsored by Redloft and by Lovell Partnerships. We're going to be back though in just a few days with more from Greenwich, so make sure you click like, that really helps us, and click subscribe so that you don't miss the next episode, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.